gone live in the room, so just keep conversations internet appropriate. Well, I guess that's a low bar.
Okay. All right. So it is 6:30, and we are going to go ahead and start our town hall tonight. What I want you to do is hold your questions till we get to the end, because we do have a Q&A time that it has my name, but it also calls out the Board of Stewards. So anybody on the Board of Stewards that has would like to answer is free to answer them too. So I want to welcome you tonight. Appreciate ya coming out on a Monday night to celebrate all things updates. So glad you guys are here. Glad for those folks that are on the live stream. Y'all turn around and wave. Yeah. Okay, so welcome y'all, and we're gonna have Pastor Donnell step up and do us a little opening prayer.
All right, well, good evening.
Good evening.
So good to see you here this evening. Feel like I'm got ready to preach right now. All right, let's go ahead and pray. Lord, we thank you that we're able to be here together, to be informed, to learn and to see how God is leading this church into this new day and this new kingdom. We just pray that you're always with us, that our leadership always guides us in the way that's according to your spirit, and that those who are here to worship you do so in spirit and in truth, so that when we work together, all things do become possible. For we work together for your good. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Donnell. Just a note for the folks that are presenting tonight, you may hold your papers, but you're probably not going to put them here because I'm told that paper shuffling will make a racket for those online.
Well, my solution will make it a little bit better with our forks.
Because there's a fork here now, and that's, we are high dollar sorts of people. All right, so I'm Christy Miller. I'm the chair of your Board of Stewards. But up next, we have the very fabulous Liz Rhines coming to talk to us a little bit about staff updates. So we had a couple little announcements lately, so Liz is going to update us.
Welcome, everyone. We are embarking on a new welcoming process. Some of you might have been in our first training that Jeff led us in this past Sunday. But we are looking to recruit a position, a part-time position, that will be the Welcome and Connecting Coordinator that will report to Bert and Generational Ministries. And this person will help consolidate all the things that we do to welcome our guests and connect them to ministries. And they'll also be in charge of coordinating all the volunteers each Sunday that are in charge, the greeters, the people in the gathering space, the ushers, all that used to be the Sunday serve and the greeters were separate. Now they're all going to be combined under a welcoming team that will be managed by this coordinator. And this position will also be working on the realm system and helping the church utilize that system better and use that to help coordinate all of our first-time visitors and getting them all connected. So, any questions on that? We're very excited. We're in the middle of recruiting for that position. So if you do know of anyone that's interested, we hope that you will send us that information. So, and the job description is on the website if you would like more information, or you can email me. So thank you very much.
You're going to talk about facility support?
Yeah, I can. you want to talk about, is that okay? We'll move on? Okay. So the other new position that we're very excited about is the facility support position. This one I know has been a long time coming, and we're excited to have this again in the church to help do all of our routine maintenance and help do setup. And this position will do the paint, a little bit of painting and some basic yard maintenance, but mainly to be here to help maintain the building and look for any issues or problems before they become big ones. And so this position is part-time and will hopefully be, I'm sure will be welcome to all the staff, so they won't have to do all the repairs, and we can have somebody here to do that. And we are still, though, going to be using volunteers. So if there's people that are interested in volunteering to help make repairs around the church, we have a great group that's been helping, and we still encourage that. And also want to encourage you too for our welcoming team. We definitely need more greeters and people willing to work in the gathering space so that we don't all have to work too often, and we can share that load with everyone. So we're very excited to get some welcoming volunteers as well as some more facility volunteers. There are people who are willing to help out with repairs of the church. So anything else to add? Thank you guys very much.
All right, so next up we have Matt Guile and Pastor Donnell are going to talk to us a little bit about the worship planning that they've been doing with their very fabulous committee.
Hey, thanks for letting me speak, Christy, and thank you all Board of Stewards for the incredible outpouring for my 25th anniversary. I'm just so overwhelmed and grateful to you and to church members too. I wanted to say that first before I said anything else, but thank you so much. What a awesome thing and amazing tribute you all did. So you've been hearing Pastor D speak a couple of times at the end of services about a Worship 360 review that is going to be coming up this coming Saturday. Thank you, Jeff, for having that up on the screen. It's 8 a.m. to 11 in the cafe. Board members are invited, worship council members are invited, and Renee Wilt will be facilitating that meeting for us. We'll be looking at our Sunday morning worship schedule and content, and looking for ways that God may be leading us to update things, if we need to make any changes. Two specific questions that we'll be considering are, do we continue in a two-service format? If so, what kind of adjustments need to be made in terms of time or location, things like that? Do we go to one service? And if so, what sort of content would be involved in that? What sort of time and would be involved in that? The space obviously would be in the sanctuary. So it's kind of a big deal. This was brought up by the Board of Stewards, and it came through Donnell to me. We formed a worship council. The worship council consists of, we've tried to reach out to people who are actively involved in the worship services currently. And these might be people from the Sunday school classes, might be people from the different ensembles who are involved. They might be people like Ken Beasley, who is our lay leader, other board members, people who are involved many times in supporting like communion or things like that, and people like Christy who and others who help as worship assistants, people who have a kind of a stakeholder area in that, but who've been a part. And what we don't want to do is to make any kind of decisions or changes without a lot of communication and buy-in. We've been down that road before. It's a very bumpy road, and it's not one that we want to take again. We've learned, I think, from our past, we want to do the right thing in the right way at the right time. We want to do God's will, nothing more, nothing less, and nothing else. So this is significant. And this 360 is a step in the process. Now, when I invite Pastor D up, he's going to describe the process of taking the recommendation or recommendations that come from the 360 and what that process then would be to communicate that to different groups in the congregation, the timeline involved, so that if a change is made, and likely at least some changes are going to be made. I just need to speak that clearly. It's probably not likely that we will have exactly the same situation that we have now. There's going to be some differences, and we'll see what that comes about. I'm trying to alarm anybody. I'm just trying to put it on your radar screen, get you thinking about it and praying about it. And if you would like to come to that meeting, we want you there. If you can't, but you want to have some input, please email me. I'll be more than happy to represent you at that meeting. So I think, yeah, Ken Beasley will be speaking on the reason, the timing of the review. He can tell more from the Board of Stewards' perspective. This has been a question that the board has been considering for quite some time. This was not something that came about, in February when the job change occurred, and I was involved now with the contemporary worship as much as I was with the traditional worship. This is something that has been discussed and been prayed about for quite some time. And Ken can describe that because he's been in on that from the ground floor. We all know Renee is terrific at organizing and trying to pull out and get us to come to agreement or consensus or things like that. So she is fantastic as a leader for this meeting. I will be there and I'll speak on the purpose of worship. And I think for people who might not know kind of how things have come about over the last at least 25 years, because when I came here in 97, we had the same service 3 times in the Centrum. And that was driven by, space, number of people, etc. And then changes have occurred, and I can walk us down that timeline as a review. I know others, like Bill Benson and others, have been riding on the ground floor of any and all worship changes and things that we've done. And then Pastor D, like I said, he'll speak on the process of the decision. I think maybe right now, I'm going to just go ahead and ask Pastor D if you'll kind of tell the group what you're speaking to the staff about the other day. Okay. Thanks, Sean.
When I came to UC last summer, there were many questions were on the floor. This church was coming out of COVID, and many things new were happening. We've had a lot of staff changes. We have been living into being an online church. So God has been doing a lot of great things here at UC. One question that came up was, the worship life here at University City. Where is God leading us in this worship life? Now, as pastor, I am tasked by discipline with the responsibility of organizing and ordering the life of worship. I do that with Matt, with Brian, and others who make worship happen here every Sunday. But one question that the church has always asked, and this is not unique to us after COVID, is what are we doing? Why are we doing it? And what is the most impactful way to bring Jesus Christ to our community for our continued growth and the growth of God's kingdom? Now, for us at this moment in time, the question is, are 2 services effective, impactful, and where God wants us to be? Is one, would that be effective and impactful and where God wants us to be? So the way that Matt and I have been thinking about this is, how do we get the most people involved in this decision? So we're going to have the Worship 360 on this Saturday, and that's going to be not the whole church, but a smaller group. And this 360, they're going to give a recommendation. The recommendation is going to come to me as the pastor. And what I want to do between September 17th and probably the end of November is to have listening sessions with different groups in the church. The Board of Stewards would be a listening session. The staff would be a listening session. The Sunday school classes would be a listening session. The so-and-sos. Every group we have here in the church, my task would be to meet with them over the next couple of months to share the recommendation and to receive their insight and to hear back from them so that they can have input into what the recommendation is and finally what the final decision might be. How do we make the final decision? Well, I'm going to make that decision in consultation with Matt, staff, and the Board of Stewards. We're going to all get together. Now, I hate to say it this way, but ultimately, it falls on me. Why? Because y'all going to say, Pastor did this. But as much as possible, we want everybody to be involved in this. And so we're going to give the opportunity. My hope is that people will join in, express, be in prayer. We want prayerful expressions. That we don't always get those when something becomes passionate. But we always pray for one another. But the goal is to see where is God leading us. Right now, I have no preference. I'm open to wherever God is leading. If we go to 10 services, I'm right there with you. You may need another pastor, but I'm right there with you. But wherever God leads, that's where I'm going to be. And I'm going to be there with you in faith and believing that God's going to make a way possible. By December, the hope is to have a decision for the church so we can have a month to kind of live into that decision. You know, the goal here is that when the decision comes, it's not going to be a secret. You know, we don't want this to be a secret that people all of a sudden get shocked by. We want it to be a gradual process that we're all moving toward. In any changes that we make, we're going to aim to have those changes take place by January of next year. So that's kind of a rough outline and a rough view of the process. When Christy has the question and answer time, Matt and I will be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, thanks, Pastor D. All right, so next up is Stewardship Update by Stewardship Update, or Lynn Comstock. She's got a whole shebang for us.
All right, y'all get to do the really fun part now, the accounting. Nobody ever laughs. So, we're going to talk about the money. But before I start talking about where we are financially, COVID was rough on the church, right? It was rough on the church socially, fellowship-wise, all those things. And obviously it was tough on us financially. So we're coming out of that slowly. And so that's what we'll talk about a little bit today. But I'm really excited about where we're headed. We've got a lot of big decisions to make, like Pastor D just talked about, but it's all exciting. And I think it'll help these numbers I'm about to show you change. So don't get too worried about them, just know this is where we are. So this is year to date through the end of July. Obviously, it's only the 12th today, so we don't have the August numbers quite yet. So we'll talk about through July. Our actual, if you look at net income, we're ahead of where we thought we were going to be budget-wise. But that's because we've held our spending. We haven't spent our budget because we haven't had the revenue to spend our budget, right? Because as you see, our revenue is down somewhat from what we were hoping for. It's 32 behind in total income at the end of July. At the end of August, according to Phyllis's numbers, we're down about 70,000. So we're getting further from budget as we go through the year. Now, fourth quarter is always holiday time. We usually make up, but we budgeted for that. So.
Yes.
And as Pastor D says, God has his way. He'll make it work, right? But I think we have to do what God wants him to do, which might be giving a little bit more money. So, as you see, we're a little behind on income. Our staff has done a wonderful job on managing expenses, making sure they know where we are cash-wise. They're not spending money they don't have to, but they're providing great ministries anyway, right? So, just want to give a big shout-out to the staff for doing that. So, where we are is we've got a $51,000 loss through 7 months. We had thought it was going to be 100, but we are getting more behind, so we don't want to catch up with the loss, right? Next slide. This gives you an idea of where we are compared to last year. Last year at this time we were a little behind where we are this year for income because we were still in the middle of COVID. And our expenses this year are a little bit more because we're doing more than we were during COVID. But net income-wise, we're a little ahead of loss. Well, we haven't lost as much. Or actually, we've lost a little bit more than last year. So, kind of overall, we do need to be prayerfully considering as a congregation how to maybe give a little bit more to help support the ministries and support what we're trying to accomplish here at the church. So we'll be talking about that more as we go into the stewardship campaign in the next couple of months. And just be prayerfully considering that because we need to support our ministries. Thank y'all.
Fabulous. Thanks, Lynn. I think you're funny. It's okay.
We say yay for the money.
Yay, money. All right, so next up is Bill Benson, and I know it says campus plan progress, but Bill's got a couple extra bonus topics to share.
Today's been a long day, long day. Wow. All right, what's coming up? Jeff, hit me, and let's see what's there. Got it, okay, good. All right, on the campus plan, we were tasked with doing some things to move ahead with it. So the first thing there, it says, Board of Stewards will visit South Park Church to ask questions about their experience in the development process and outcomes they've experienced. Excuse me. So myself, Donnell, and Judy, oh, there she is, very good. The three of us went and visited with South Park Church. And I will say that for myself, and I think the other will agree with me, it was an eye-opening experience to a great degree. I would say from their experience, I've learned some things that we don't want to do, and some things they did good, right? So the don't want to do, I'm going to tell you a couple things that just really have hit me hard about the way to look at it. It's kind of interesting what they did is they had 7 acres for sale, actually. So they sold 6 acres, and they got $2 million an acre. So they had $12 million. Now what they did is that 7th acre is they put their church facility on the 7th acre, okay? So they have 1 acre for the church facility, and then they sold the other 6 acres for that $12 million. Now, from there, it's kind of you know, we go to visit there, and if you guys know out South Park, it's very, very urban there. And so when you go, their building is kind of down away from the street, and there's an apartment building that's built in front of it, so to speak, and another hotel that's down behind it, and it's very urban. But the thing that struck me in the whole thing was that from where we've been, and I'll explain this a little bit more in just a second, is that my impression is that once they sold that land to the developer, which was Childress Klein, they lost some ability to do what I call partner, okay? And one of the things that, you know, and what we've been talking about on our plan and things we try to present to you is that our piece of it is A, we don't want to sell the land. We want to lease the land, do a land lease for 50, 75, 100 years and get that recurring revenue all the time. But the other thing to that is that the plan that Shook Kelly's drawn out for us, and I think that we and most of us have adopted with, is the fact that it's a plan that will allow us to partner with the community around us. And my feeling from the South Park visit was that there's really not much partnership amongst the church and the hotel and the very expensive apartments. The top apartment there, which absolutely they're not playing quarterback. Sam Darnold has an apartment there. That apartment is $8,000 a month, just to give you an idea. And I think the cheap ones are $3,000 or $4,000 a month. So, you know. But anyway, so it's a very high-end area, right? But they just don't have a relationship in there. They were talking about planting, can you believe this? Planting someone in the apartment building to be able to do this. So it's kind of crazy. But well, one thing they did that was that we can take that I like about what they did, which would help, is the thing that we need to consider, is that their building is a 4-story building, and on the bottom floor is they are renting the bottom floor out to different spaces. It's going to be a bank, a dentist. They have this exercise thing, you know, on the bottom. And they generate revenue from that bottom level. And that bottom level revenue generator pays the mortgage on the building, okay? So they, in essence, they have the mortgage on their church covered every month by the rent that's being paid, go ahead, Jim, by the rent that's being paid to them each month, which is fantastic. They've got this covered now. So that was a good thing. So as we look at, you know, if the money amount that we could possibly get in here, we can start looking at that would give us about $2 you know, and of course, none of that's been determined right now, but it is an opportunity to bring us some substantial revenue in on a monthly basis and figure out how we do that. Now, so that visit to South Park, it was very enlightening. It was just very enlightening. And they don't have the green space that we have. I mean, our area and their area, it's just so totally different. And I think we have so many advantages over what they have there, quite honestly, to make it a community center where people want to come versus what they have over there. So that's just, we have all the advantages in the world to try to make this happen and make it a very successful thing that's be moving forward with it. So let's see here. A time of prayer and discernment, we did that. And we've prayed over this. We'll decide whether or not to move forward with the next steps for the alternative future plan. I'll explain that here in a second. If it's decided to move forward with the alternative futures, a phase 2 campus plan committee will be formed, and some new members and some members from the phase 1 committee will be on there. All right, so what we've done is as a committee of the Board of Stewards, as we looked at everything, and we voted to move ahead, okay, on this. So I think, pull up that next slide. Yeah, we did that because, you know, we went and looked at all of the responses that we had when we came back from the thing, and we looked at all the responses, and all of them were around that third strategic vision. Go ahead and pull that one up. And this is just kind of the beginning piece of it. So what we'll be doing on the next piece is this, because, let me try to get over here and try to explain this. This right here is nothing more than a dream, okay? There's nothing that says really and truly what's going to go in that spot, right? It's just an idea that Shook Kelly came up with, and there's nothing that says what's really going to go there today. But now we're to a point that where we need to start getting in with Shook Kelly is have them come back and with us, not just them by themselves, but with the church, you know, because we'll have committees and stuff around this, is better define about what we want these spots to be going forward, right? Now, once we better define, it's not exactly defined, but I also use the word better define, right? So once we better define what these spots will be, that helps us go to all this is kind of running together. We've got to go out to developers and say, okay, are you even interested in partnering with us first? Because right now, we don't have any, we don't know. And if you're interested in partnering with us, what's the financial model to us going to look like? Okay? Now, once we get that financial model and see what it's going to look like to us, we can do this. We might rejoice and say, hallelujah, I never dreamed it was worth that much to us. Or we might say, we need to reevaluate everything and try to do something else. Right now, we just don't know. And so what we're into the process to do now is better define this plan, right? And then from there, find out if someone's willing to partner with us. And if they are, what's a revenue stream look like for us, right? Because right now, any number anybody gives is purely a big old guess. So we need to know that before we can really move ahead to bring something to the entire congregation and say, oh man, we have this plan, and in my mind, I'm just, you know, because, you know, I've been around forever, because I'm just going back to when Bob Conner came to us and said, this is what it's going to look like at our new church, and we didn't have land yet, okay? We didn't even, oh, excuse me.
That's a good online.
Right. And so, I'll get back over here. But I remember that, you know, I'll go back. I remember Bob Conner coming to us and said, we don't have land yet, but this is what we want to build. And so the reality of it is that's kind of where we were. We're kind of there today. We know where we want to do this, but we're still we're just investigating, right? So the only commitment we're making right now is just to investigate where we go from here, you know? And that's really what it's all about. It's just trying to find that out. So once we come back and we find out, like I said, we may decide this isn't for what we want to do. We may find out this is the best thing we ever thought about doing. So, but we've got to make this next step to actually come and make that decision. Okay? So, all right. That's all the slides we had. All right, a couple other things I want to talk about is I am the trustee liaison, and being that, I get to know a lot about the building, more than I wanted to know. But I will say is that in the time frame that we've had where we didn't have someone here working full-time or part-time in that, as you can imagine, a lot of maintenance things kind of got left behind, poor old Rhea, she's been, you know, running around here trying to get things fixed, call people and stuff like that. Well, luckily for us is we have some fantastic members in our church, and some of these retired gentlemen, they've just done a fantastic job. So I do want to give a shout out to Tim, who's sitting in the back. And then Neil Brown has put in a ton of work with Tim, and Eddie Holland, he puts in a lot of work around here. And so they've done some great stuff. Things that we just take for granted, we don't realize it. One of them was between Tim and Eddie and Neil, I learned more about lighting than I ever wanted to know. And but we kind of got that figured out, you know. We got Eddie's went around and replaced a bunch of ballasts. I had no clue we had so many ballasts out in the building. It was amazing how many were out. We got the lighting, you know, you don't think about it, but the lights were different colors within the same thing. So kind of got a plan about trying to get all that matched up and get everything looking right on that piece of it. And so, and Tim and Neil have gone around and done all kinds of work in the weekday school, getting everything ready for weekday school. That was done well. As you know, Shannon had it painted. We have new carpet over there. We had a little issue with some mold, so we paid the guys to come out here. They vacuumed out, and then they roto-rooted all the stuff in the weekday school. So the weekday school, I can tell you, is painted, carpeted, roto-rooted out, and the whole bit. So they're in good shape over there right now. But Tim and Neil spent a lot of time over there doing that. In the meantime, another problem that we've come up with, unfortunately, is this, and this is a big one, is that we discovered that we had water running into the hallway over here in the Hall of Ministries. And the reason that water's running in over there is that the celebration garden out here sits higher than the walkway. And what that creates is water is flowing into the walkway on rainy days, because the way the building's built is that rain comes down from these gables here, and I mean, there's a lot of it. There's a lot of water that comes around out here. And so in the building of the celebration garden, I'm not sure how it happened or what happened, but basically we have a water issue, that water's standing or is coming up to the building and going in there, and as that water seeps down to the side of the building, that water is putting pressure on the foundation. And the last thing we want to do is have an issue with the foundation, where the foundation on this gigantic building cracks or something like that, and the expense to fix that would be wazoo more money than we want to spend. So Tim and Neil and myself, we're going to meet with some landscape contractors, and we're going to figure out what the cost is to regrade much of the celebration garden. A lot of those bushes and stuff will have to be taken out, redone, and completely redo it so the water runs away from the building and not towards the building. So at some point through the winter or the fall or maybe early spring, when you see it torn up, and this is to the folks out there watching on the live stream, is if you see the celebration garden torn up, no one got mad. We're just trying to fix it, okay? We're just trying to fix that piece of it. So with that, let you know that's what's going on with that. We will get it fixed, but it's going to take a little bit of time. But it has turned out to be, unfortunately, an issue for us. Last thing I want to talk about.
Bill, on that, you might want to say that we try to save the pavers.
Oh, yeah. Good point. Part of the whole thing is, we have those pavers out there that have people's names and stuff on them, and the plan will be to save those pavers. We'll put them back. But it may be, I have no clue how it's going to be done. If I say anything, I'm going to be wrong. So, but they will go back, but we'll figure it out. We just got to get it figured out, right? Last thing is, I was tasked earlier in the year, is that, let me explain this. There is a part of the United Methodist Church, and Pastor Donnell can straighten me out on this if I need to be, but it's SBC, and what the SBC is called Saving Black Churches.
Strengthening the Black Church.
What is it called?
21st century.
It's what now?
Strengthening the Black
Oh,
Church.
Strengthening the Black Churches of the 21st century. Exactly correct. Right. So that it is a Methodist, so this is all United Methodist piece of the church, all right? Strengthening the Black Church of the 21st century. So they have a part of their group, and this is how it's kind of come about, is it all revolves around prison ministry. And so when I first heard about this, and what happened was that for some reason I was appointed or got chosen to be the liaison for a conference they're going to have here in October. And it's a very large conference, very large. Now, what this is about is they call it prison. It's the kind of called prison ministry, and I'll send out something about a link if you want to go to it. But really and truly, what it boils down to is the way they explained it to me, and at one of the meetings we had, well, several years ago, is these churches began to realize that there were a lot of men and women leaving prison, but getting them back into society was an issue, okay? And the church was sitting to the side and not doing anything about it, right? And so these African-American churches that were United Methodist got together and said, we know that we can have some effect on this. We got to go do this. And so what they did is they came up with, and listen, I've been driving all day, so my brain is kind of fried. But so they came up with this whole thing about doing the prison ministry. And with around that, it's based around, it's the 3 R's. It's recovery, redemption, and reentry, right? No, it's not that. Yeah, it's recovery, redemption, and reentry. And around that is about recovery, it's coming back in and, recovering from issues and stuff like that. Redemption, we all know about redemption. It's the churches working on people's souls, really. And reentry is getting these people back into society. So what happens at the conference is, we will have a conference here on the 18th, 19th, 20th, it's the 21st, I think it is. It's 4 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So Wednesday's registration, do what now? October, yes. October. Wednesday's registration, and a speaker will be there here Wednesday night. Thursday will be, people will begin coming in on Thursday, and they start Thursday morning with a worship service all through the day, and they end up the evening with a worship service. On Thursday, that day, is the Bishop, Ken Carter will be here, the mayor, and some people from the city council will be here, okay? So in this thing that goes on, there are people that are involved in the prison system, officials in the prison system in the state of North Carolina that are going to be involved in this, and this is a big deal. So we could have anywhere from 500 to 1,000 people here. So it's a lot of people going to be here. So my part over the last few months have been being involved with, I've been there kind of listening to what they're doing, how they're putting this together, the way they're going to do it and everything, and I am the liaison at church to kind of make sure everything gets to put together here at church. So we got some of the basics down. We know how many rooms they're going to use, where they're going to be, so basically going to take care of the whole facility. And Rhea and Brian and I have a conference call next Thursday to get down to maybe some of the brass tacks on exactly what they're going to need, about those things. So we're getting close to that time. Now, what's going to be expected from us? From us, I'm going to need some volunteers, and these volunteers are going to be here to direct people, show them where things are, answer questions. Now, on that Thursday call, we will find out, as I'm getting more and more into this, is that there may be some, and what they would call moderators, but I don't think you're going to moderate anything. You might be in a room where they're going to have 8 classrooms downstairs, and in those 8 classrooms downstairs are going to be 37 chairs in each classroom, and that's the number they can put in each classroom, times out at 37. But anyway, with those, you may be in there saying, as a timekeeper, saying time's up, it's time to move on to go to the next thing. But anyway, this list of what's going to be fine, we'll find this out Thursday. And I'm working with, is it Hank Dozier, right, Hank? Yeah. I'm working with Mr. Hank Dozier, who is a pastor here in Charlotte, about... He's a layperson, exactly correct. Yeah. But anyway, so I'm working with him here about the what is needed for volunteers, but it's not volunteers just from our church. It's going to be volunteers from other churches around Charlotte, other Methodist churches around Charlotte. And then they will have 3 training classes for volunteers, so the volunteers know what to do. So we're going to have 3 training classes. I found that out this week. So I'm excited about it because, listen, when you walk around, and I showed them the facility back last April, they were most impressed. They were just thinking this is a great place to do it and the whole thing. And I'm excited to show it to them. I will say that we've done some work on the place. Is that we had them, we got people to come up, gave us a good deal. Rhea and I were like, man, if these guys are going to pressure wash this place for that, go for it, right? So anyway, they just sent us a letter, said we'll come out, and they gave us a great price to pressure wash. So if you notice on the front of the building, here in the fellowship hall, around the bell tower, it was black. We went as clean as it can be now. So all that, they came out and pressure washed the sidewalks, the whole bit. It looks good out there. So we got that done. Rich has got a team coming out Saturday. We're gonna trim out here in the celebration garden and other things we're doing to kind of gussy the place up, to be ready for that. But I'm excited about it. And so you guys, I'll be putting some more info out after we have this meeting on Thursday. I'll get with Rhea and Brian and decide, you know, what do we need to do? What do we need to get the message out? And it'll be that weekend. But I'm excited about it, and I'm excited about what it can mean for, you know, this whole thing about reentry. I think sometimes we don't think too much about that because, you know, how many of us know people have been in jail or something other, but the reality of it is you've gone there, and I do know a couple people, and I know that reentry piece is tough, right? And sometimes people, and I've personally been here many years ago, I didn't get in a whole lot of trouble, but I did, I've been there, is that sometimes you make a tiny little mistake, and listen, they'll put you in jail, and I gotta fess up, I've been there, and put you in jail over a tiny little mistake, and sometimes you just can't get out of it, right? And those things do happen, right? And so, for that is, you know, I see this thing where, unfortunately, you know, these people are out here, they're trying to get back in, and some of them just can't do it. So this is the thing that what it does is it does help these people re-enter in, and I think this is an opportunity for us to provide the opportunity for a place for all these people to get together and do this for us. So I think for as a church, it's good for us to do this thing, all right? And I can't think of anything else right now.
I'm sure if you do think of something, you'll let us know.
I'm just busy. So.
All right, so I believe we have had a question about whether or not Jeff could share out those, the slides.
Oh, yeah.
So Jeff will share that, maybe with Brian, and Brian will shoot those babies out. And we have a little bit of time for our questions and answers, if anybody's got anything. I mean, I know there will be questions, but I'll try to have answers. I know smart people.
I'm asking some questions online.
Yes.
Lynn, can you share the impact of the PPP stuff in comparison with what?
Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because I'm sure that's probably
So
a
the question was to share the impact of the PPP loans that we
Yeah.
received.
Well, I can tell you the PPP loans, what the government meant for them to do, it did for our church. We got a total of $470,000 over a 2-year period, 235 twice, and it's kept us afloat, right? It helped us when COVID would have shut us down financially. So it did exactly what the government intended. It kept us going, it kept us with our staff, it kept us with our ministries. We're slowly using it up. That's the reason I say need some money. But it's really served its purpose. So
Awesome. That's a good question, Jeff. Do you have some questions from online, Brian?
We don't yet asked. There are 21 folks online.
Oh, that's good.
Concurrent viewers, including probably Matt and myself, so thank you.
Anybody here have questions?
I have a question for Bill. You stated that we were going to see who wants to partner with us after we define exactly what we want. What's the timeline on that process, defining what we want?
So Francis's question was, Bill had said that we will kind of make some decisions about what we want it to be, and then we'll look for some partners. And Francis is looking for what is the timeline there?
Francis, you've asked a very good question. And so I'm going to shout to the back, and I will give a shout out to Judy, Judy Besler, sitting back in the back. Is listen, she has done a fantastic job keeping us on track and doing this. So Judy, what do you think that would be? Why don't you come on up here and help me out with this one?
I was
Yeah.
supposed to be in the back quietly.
Yeah, but you can't be on this one.
Never works, does it?
It never
Yeah.
works with Bill.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next step is to form the next committee, Phase 2 committee, which will, as Bill said, would be some of the older committee members, not older, the committee members from Phase 1, and this new committee will be formed. The first thing that the new committee will be doing is to choose a firm that will do the financial modeling for us. That is their first task. So we have to form the committee,
choose the firm that's going to do the financial modeling, and that chosen firm will be working hand in hand with Shook Kelly. And I like to think of it as it's a strategic plan with a financial model. If anybody's ever started a business or knows somebody that started a business, in business it's called a business plan. Okay. How does this work? What does it look like? What is it going to cost? Who's going to pay? What are the revenue? What's in it for the partners? What's in it for the church? It's a business plan for this project. We don't know what the actual week by week is, Francis, but we're hoping to get the new financial modeling company and the committee formed and done by the end of October so that we can actually start in November, December, working on that strategic plan and have a financial model by the end of January. So that is our goal.
So when we acquire that company or partner, we'll want to share with them our vision for what we want to see in the space.
Mhm.
What it's gonna look like. So have we agreed on what we want it to look like?
That is what the committee will be working on.
That's
Is
what
to-
the Shook,
is
that's
to-
what the Shook Kelly part is part of.
With Shook Kelly.
We want it to be more, to include service to the community.
Of course,
Then
always.
we would work with them to make that happen.
Well, yeah, but it's a two-part though, because you got a financial piece. Because you really got two things going on here. Is Shook Kelly is the dreamer and the designer, okay? They help us with the division, but they know the vision, but they know the architectural thing and all that stuff to go along with it, right? And so they have the design and the vision, and that their job as an architect is to come and talk to us and find out what do we want to get that. But then from there, part of this thing is the financial company is they're hand in hand with us to figure out, okay, if we have this vision and we put it together like the Shook Kelly thing puts together, how much money, what's the financials on that piece of it? So really, it's not a one-step thing. We'll
together.
have two tracks running
It's
at the
together.
same time, and it's almost like one track's on top of the other one, you see? So one of them is a financial thing, but the guy from the finance side, he can't come up with any answers or anything until we come up with the other piece of it, which is the, what's it gonna look like? And so we have to work with the Shook Kelly people to understand what's it gonna look like, so the financial people can come along and say,
It goes-
I'm willing to do this on the
Right,
finance side.
and if something doesn't make sense financially, we want to build, a mushroom-shaped whatever, it's like, okay, no, that's not going to work financially. So that gets taken off, so it goes back and forth. But the committee and the church members will be involved with the vision of what we want to do and what we want to be for and with the community at large, not just our community, but the area as well. Pastor?
Yeah, just kind of, let me see.
I didn't even get to the council yet.
Yeah.
The council.
Just so that you know something about process, how this happens. Right now, your board of stewards is really leading this process, but they're leading it also keeping the community informed, which is you, about where we are, what's going on. Before any ground is broken, before any building takes place,
Or partnership is accepted.
Before we can do any of that, we have to get permission from our district to change our trust clause in the deed. So in the very last part of this, you as a church will vote to go forward or not. When the final plan is made and everything looks good, all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed, we're going to call a church conference. And the DS will lead that church conference. And at that point, the final plan will be presented. And the good news is the final plan won't be a secret. It's going to be the best unkept secret in the history of the church. You're going to be kept informed as to what's going on. So when that time comes, you can make an informed, prayerful decision. But the final decision rests in your hands as a congregation. Do we feel God's in this? The process, I can tell you God's been in it all the way. Your board of stewards has been praying about this, agonizing about this, asking all kinds of questions that people they come from you. They get nervous. They start asking some good questions. So the board of stewards is actually looking out for you and asking God, where do we need to be? You know, it's a good process. I know it seems like we all should be making these decisions, but in the Methodist Church, we vote for these leaders to help guide us. And they help lead us to the inflection point where everybody can then, you know, in a prayerful way say, thank you, God. Is that helpful?
And one thing, an architectural thing, and we did this when we built this building, and luckily, you know, Neil was our architect, so it was easy for him to come in and do this. But in any architectural thing, is if you go into it and you go into a group, which they do what they call programming. And they go around, the architect goes around, and we'll set up committees, and they go around and they talk to people in that programming so they can figure out what to build, so to speak, right? And that's the input that the congregation gets to put in as to what's in the, you know, that diagram up there. So this isn't done behind closed doors where, in fact, Board of Stewards, you know, we had a big change coming up here in January, and so I'll be off Board of Stewards come January. Now, I hope I can stay on this committee.
You seem to be bragging about this.
Yeah, I know, they are, really, but anyway, come January, I'll be off, but I want to stay on this committee here if Judy will let me do that. But anyway, the reality is that programming piece is an important piece, but that way you can participate in things about conversation about what they'll be. Because when you see that picture that says apartments there, I have no clue. You know, we've talked about all kinds of things like, is it apartments for, if it is even apartments or condos, is it for, we've shown this picture of the handicap thing, the elderly, I mean, we've gone through the whole gamut, trust me.
Yeah.
We've gone through the whole gamut. So
We don't know.
the reality is we just don't know. We just don't know.
And-
So the idea is that the Board of Stewards, along with the committee, has been kind of doing the legwork to gather all the information and get the people here that can tell us what we need to know so that the church can make a quality decision. We recognize that it's not our decision, and I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I'm happy that it's not my decision. Cause it's all gonna come down on Pastor D. No, I'm just kidding. Anywho, does anybody else have questions? Yes, Betsy.
As a point of further understanding, so the financial group that's gonna come in, are there already developers and property managers that have been? No.
That's what they'll do. So the question Betsy has is, the developers that come in, are there already people that are interested, or the, financial group that comes in are there already developers that are interested?
Interested in what?
Land.
Interested in what? We have nothing to present to a developer.
Well, here's my question.
For serious, and we don't have the permission from the conference to proceed, so that won't happen for a while.
Go ahead. Now, what's,
Well, I guess what I'm looking at is understanding that what I hear the church saying is that the church would like to lease the land.
that's a part, yeah, that's what we'd like.
That's our hope, yes,
Correct.
yes.
So the church would like to lease the land. The church has interest and has some founding principles as to what they'd like to see in a general statement
Yes, mhm,
within the land.
right,
So as such, there are different types of developers who do different types of work. And
Correct.
developers work in tandem with property managers when there's a lease involved.
right.
As you look at having something, so you do have something,
Mhm.
what that looks like, hasn't,
The financial modelers, I think to answer your question, the financial modelers are not accountants. They are folks who have history and experience in land use development. So they have a finger on the pulse of the market here in Charlotte, and that's part of the financial model. So they may be asking soft questions about if we had a property that, theoretical questions, but not specific to this church.
understood.
Yeah.
But you can't do a financial model without.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, that's what I was getting at, just
Yeah.
confirming
Yeah.
that there has
That
to
would
be
be part
some
of the process.
engagement with developers and
They-
property managers.
that
That's
is,
what that committee.
that's what the financial modeling company does, is they make soft inquiries as to what the market will bear.
That's what I wanted to.
Yeah, and that's, you know,
That,
Yeah.
Lynn, you're hitting the nail on the head. That's
Yeah.
what I was-
yeah, and that's part of the, you know, is it feasible? And that's a market test, right? Is there gonna be a market for what we wanna do? That's part of the financial model. It's not just if we sell this at this amount of square footage cost and will it come back, and it really is an encompassing financial model that we're looking at. Does that answer your question? Is that good?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, what else you got?
Go back over.
Bert?
You knew you weren't getting that.
I knew it.
You're welcome that I lived up to your expectations.
You always do.
So one, it kind of was already answered, but I just want to make sure, coming from a mission standpoint, that it gets stated in this kind of public space, is that if we were to move at some point and have housing, some type of housing, I hope that we will definitely consider that at least a percentage of that housing be lower income housing assistance or something. We don't, if all of our things are between $4,000 and $8,000 a month, we are not living out the church's vision.
Okay,
I'll have to move.
right.
Yeah.
So I just want to say it so that people can hear it on the live stream, that Bert has expressed a desire for us to consider including if we do housing, including low income, mid income, so that there would be, we're not looking at $9,000 apartments. Is that what you're saying? So I think, I should only speak for myself, so I'm only gonna speak for myself and say that yes, that would be my desire as well.
And then the other one was when we heard Bill share earlier about the South Park Church, or whatever they're called now, they were sharing. So there's clearly a developer out there that will work with the church that is selling them the land.
Yes.
Does Shook Kelly, or do we know of anybody that has worked with the church that has leased that land, and have we gone to see what they do?
No, we don't know. And ship, let me go.
Yep, go ahead.
In looking at the whole thing as far as the people that we chose, we looked at three different companies to choose to partner with us to find out where we wanted to go. And one of those was the Methodist, and I cannot think of the name of it, it's not Foundation, but they're a group that what they do is they manage all the land in the churches, the Methodist church. They have a ton of land out there that needs to be managed, right? And I can't think of the name of it, but it's Wesley something, right? I don't know if it's Wesley Foundation, but it's Wesley something. But anyway, they were one of the ones that came in and talked to us. And they do manage it, and they have done a couple of things like that where they've gone out and either sold the land, or I think one of them, I think Harrisburg was going to lease the land. Harrisburg United Methodist Church was going to do a shopping center. They're going to lease the land back. So personally, that I know of any, I just, it's not something I've really looked into. But I will say that what has come up is that within the Methodist Church that has happened, as you know, that as Methodist churches, sometimes they, come and go. And as all of us know as United Methodists, technically we don't own this land. We've paid for it, but really it's owned by the conference, okay? So, give you an example, and Bert knows this, but I think I need to say it on for the people on there, is like, for example, down at Cole Church, they folded, but the conference did not sell that land. I think some people were under the impression that the United Methodist Church sold the Cole property. They didn't sell that property. What they did is they've gone in and they've come up with a plan where they do have some subsidized housing, and they're going to do something with the UNCC, the campus ministry, some stuff. And also part of that is going to be built as the place was going to build a small church down there. So the reality of it is the conference has taken that land and repurposed that land themselves, okay? And they'll get revenue off of that, the conference will, right? Another one that's happened out there is that if you guys are familiar with what used to be Muzon United Methodist Church, and then they became Selwyn United Methodist Church up at the corner of Woodlawn Road and Selwyn Avenue. That Muzon had been there for a long time. So what the conference did there was they sold that land. If you go up there today, if you hadn't been there in a few years, you're going to be shocked because there is no church there today. There are townhomes there. They're just about being finished. But they sold that land, and they're developing townhomes there. And what they did is they combined the Grace Church that is down there on Woodlawn, if you know where Grace Church is. And so they've combined those two congregations, and the plan is to take that money that they got from over there at Muzon and to tear down the Grace Church and rebuild a new thing on a kind of a concept like what we're trying to do, and take that money and do that. So, the conference, they're looking at creative ways to use the urban land to generate income also. So we're not out here on a ledge doing something that's not being done throughout probably the whole Methodist world to a great degree, but especially in large cities like ours, where this land is, the city's grown out to us, and this land's become very valuable, and the Methodist Church owns a lot of land, trust me. They owned a lot of land. So it's something, we're not doing something that's unusual. But maybe we could check with someone and say who else is doing that, but I just don't know another example of the least particularly, though, right?
That part of the UMC you were trying to think of is the Wesley Community Development.
Yes.
Wesley Community Development.
Helping faith-based organizations repurpose their assets to serve the community and missional engagement. And they might have some examples.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's exactly what
Bert, you got something else?
Oh, I just thought if there was somebody out there that Kelly might know somebody would be good to, because kind of the two examples we've been given or that I've heard of is just again the South Park Church and then, the Birkdale facility, right? And that's all retail.
Yep.
That's not faith-based, so I just didn't know if there was something that, we could at some point look at a church and learn from them like we learned from the South Park. Here's, things we would or wouldn't do.
Right.
Learn from them things they would or wouldn't do in terms of the leasing and the partnership.
Anybody got anything else?
Nothing has come into mind.
So, this is not speak now or forever hold your peace. I always like to say, if you go home and you think to yourself, shoot, dadgummit, why didn't I ask, whatever, then bos@ucumc.org is your email address to contact the Board of Stewards, or you could, of course, reach out to any of us individually or Pastor Donnell. So we are just grateful for having such an attentive group here tonight, and just want to say thank you for coming out and for being interested and for supporting your church financially and with your heart and your mind. That's important to me, and I'm glad it's important to you too. All right, so unless we have anything else.
I'd just like to thank the Board of Stewards for
Oh.
all the hard work you've done and for allowing this forum for us to share.
You are always so supportive and encouraging, Frances. Thank you for that.
She gives good snacks to me.
She does give good snacks. Speaking of good snacks, there are good snacks out here. So I'm sorry, live stream friends, but you're missing out. But there are good snacks right out here that Frances has put together for us. Matt's got a question.
I see that prayer is next on the agenda.
Yes.
Can I lift up one prayer request tonight
Yes.
that we pray for, maybe a little bit longer than usual? Al Ford was one of our members, May Ford's husband, been in the hospital for a long time, way over a month, in and out, and we just learned today that he is shifting to hospice care.
Yeah.
COVID
So,
pneumonia, he's been fighting it, and it took a turn for the worse today.
so for the live stream folks, we have heard today that Al Forbes, who's not been doing well, he's been in the hospital for a long time, took a turn for the worse today, and they're looking into hospice care for him. Pastor Donnell, do you want to close us in prayer? Thank you.
Let's open our hearts and minds and go to God. Lord, we don't know what journey life will bring us on. We never know how illnesses will affect us. So we lift up Al this day, that your spirit and your healing might be upon him. Each day is a gift. And we ask that for May and for Al and for their whole families, they can receive that gift and experience you in their lives. Even as we boldly ask for a healing, we accept that healing comes as you bring it. Not just to Al, but to all of our lives. So we praise you and we lift you up. We give you thanks for the way you've been with us, watch over us, and keep us from day to day. Send us now as missionaries into the field, to be in the hospitals, to be in the care facilities, to be in the prisons, to be in our community, to share a good word that you are a God whose love expands the whole universe, but you care for each of us as your own child. So now, as we have outlined things for this church plans, bodacious, bold plans, We ask that they may find success in your kingdom. And wherever you lead, whatever needs to happen, let it grow as you will. Let it be trimmed and pruned as you will, so the fruit may come through your will, and we may feed your 5, 6, and 10,000. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thanks, guys.
You got a bunch of talking to do.
I'm just doing what it tells me. I said, I'm just doing what it tells me.
Yeah. A little bit anyway, yeah, I understand.